Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Scout Fantasy PGA DFS. I am Alex White. I am here with Mark Ferris. How are we doing today, Mark?
Doing good. This should be a quicker version of our live stream because we're dealing with a completely different animal this week.
Yes, we are. And I am in my office. I know you're at home from work on your lunch break, so we're going to try to speed through this. Guys, just to kind of give you an update before you even get deep into this slate, the match play, honestly, I play maybe 25% of what I normally do. I don't put a lot of money into it. It's a guessing game. It really is. Like, stats really don't even play a big role for me this week. And if they don't, like, that's my game. That's how I win money. So I'm just kind of going – we're going to go through the brackets today. I'm assuming we're just going to try to pick the winners in the brackets that we believe and then run on from there. Does that sound good, Mark?
I think that's the only thing we can do. I mean, like you said, some of these guys, the stats go out the window because when they're playing head-to-head, it doesn't matter how many birdies they're making. You just got to do better than the guy on that hole. So, some of these guys are good at match play, and we can emphasize that. Like, my favorite person, Ian Poulter, he's great at match play. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win his bracket, but he's probably a solid choice for some points. So that's just how the way we're going to have to handle it. And we're having to do this a little faster and a little earlier this week because everything starts on Wednesday. So we don't have the time to go through the stuff like we normally do.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started. So there's 4 quadrants, and really, guys, the way to gain an edge and the only way you can really win on DraftKings is winning a GPP. I mean, you can still win money, but winning a GPP, you need 4 of the people in your lineup to make the semifinals, and then 2 other golfers need to really be in the Elite 8 or top 16 and be pretty high scoring. Otherwise, you're kind of drawing dead. So don't pick people from the same quadrant. There's 4 separate quadrants. And the best way to kind of look at the brackets in a big landscape, I go to PGAtour.com and they actually have this bracket challenge.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking off of right now. Just kind of it lays everything out there like a March Madness bracket, and it makes it a lot easier to visualize. And you can piece in, and once you click it, it'll move that in person into the next bracket. And you can make your DraftKings lineups out of that. I was doing that last night. It seemed to help me a lot with making my decisions. So PGAtour.com and kind of just go to their little bracket challenge, and that's the best way to look it up. Would you agree, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. And one of the keys that just from the things that I've read about how people will deal with this and how they handle it in the past is try not to pick 2 guys in your lineup that have the potential of meeting in the round of 16 because you're basically eliminating yourself. So if when you get down to the quarterfinals, try to pick guys that aren't going to meet each other in the quarterfinals. I mean, sometimes it may not be able to do that, and you may end up with 2 guys in the quarterfinals, and you're going to get 1 through. And maybe that's another way to look at it. But like Al said, you want to try to get at least 4 of your 6 guys through to the round of 16, hopefully to the round of 8.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's start with this top bracket, and then we'll just each pick our favorite golfer in there. And I'm actually on the bracket thing now. I'm going to plug it in, and then at the end, I'll tell you guys what the bracket looks like. So it gives you an idea, and that's kind of how you can create your lineup. That's just going to be the easiest way. So we have Dustin Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama, Brandon Grace, and Chez Reavie in our first bracket. We need one of them to get to that round of 16. Obviously, DJ will be the favorite in that, but ownership is going to play a huge role this week. There's going to be a lot of very obvious chalk. But, that doesn't mean that DJ can't just make it out of that first round. He is the clear favorite there. Anybody that you really like in that range besides DJ?
I think Hideki's a dark horse. He'd be the only other one out of those. Brandon Grace isn't playing really well right now, and Chez Reavie, isn't – I say this every week, all these guys can win, but Chez Reavie isn't just – I'm sorry, but just isn't the quality of player that DJ and Matsuyama are. But, there's shocks in this all the time. Guys in match play come out and, Reavie could beat DJ and Matsuyama the first 2 rounds. But I would say I agree with you. DJ's probably the favorite, and then Matsuyama would be my dark horse.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just don't think that Grace and Reavie are in the same field as those 2. Grace can put birdies together in bunches, and that's something to notice. There's no 3-hole birdie bonus, but if you win 3 holes in a row, you do get a bonus as far as points this week, guys. So you want your golfers to string together 3 holes in a row. He has the ability to do that, but obviously Hideki and Johnson do as well. So I'm going to go Johnson there and just get him to the round of 16. I really think he kind of handles that grouping. I think Matsuyama is a better 4-round player, not really like a match play type golfer. So I'm gonna just stick with DJ and kind of move on to that next bracket. So we have Patrick Reed, Sergio Garcia, Shane Lowry, and Andrew Putnam. My clear favorite there, I think, is actually Sergio. I think Reed will be the lowest owned, and I don't mind Reed after breaking people's hearts last week. I know he broke ours. It was just, everybody was on him. He was 35 to 40% owned. He was just one of those trunk slammers. Hard to predict, but I actually think this course plays well for people that are around the green. So I don't mind Reed. If Sergio ends up being higher owned, I'm definitely going to go to Reed. But I think Sergio takes that bracket. But if ownership hits it, I'm playing ownership 100% this week, guys. So it's Reed for me if he's lower owned than Sergio.
Yeah. And remember how Patrick Reed played Roy McIlroy in the Ryder Cup. I mean, Reed is one of those guys that the head-to-head competition gets him going. So, if Garcia is going to be high owned and you want to fade down to Reed just to get lower ownership, there's not a problem there.
Absolutely. And I think if Reed and DJ meet up, I think actually Reed will end up taking that. So he might be my dark horse in that top quadrant. So I'm going to plug Reed in. Would you say Sergio, or would you go Reed over him, honestly?
Well, actually, when I did that bracket this morning, I did the same thing you did, just so I would have something in front of me, and I actually took Sergio.
Okay.
But again, it's 6 one, half dozen the other.
Absolutely. All right. So then we go down. I'm just going to go down that side before we flip over the other side of the bracket. We have Xander Schauffele, RCB, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, and Tyrell Hatton and Lee Westwood are our top 4 in that bracket. It's RCB and Westwood for me in that group. I don't mind Schauffele. I just haven't really seen him prove himself in match play. I know he's a young golfer. He does do well in like these WGC events, but he's never really done well in a match play. I like Westwood. I think he's kind of trending in the right direction. And then RCB, he's just a really good person on the green, and he has a good record as far as match play goes. So it's definitely out of RCB and Westwood for me. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, and here's the other thing you got to remember too. If you take the favorite in each one of these pods, and they're like each bracket has 4 pods in it, you're not going to have enough money. So at some point you're going to have to make a decision to go down. And Westwood's the 62nd ranked golfer out of 64 here, so his price is probably fairly reasonable. I don't have the pricing in front of me, but I know it's a lot more reasonable than what Schauffele is. And Cabrera-Bello is actually in the $7,500 range, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So he's another one that you can probably get for a lower price, because you're going to need to do that. You can't do the DJs, the Roses, and all those guys, because you're never going to have enough money for it.
Yep, Westwood's at 6,600 and RCB is at 7,500. So that kind of gives you an idea. And I've made quite a few lineups with RCB and Westwood. Not on the same lineup. Don't do that, guys. You're kind of pigeonholing yourself if you lock 2 people in from the same bracket. They both can't get out, so don't make that mistake. I cannot make that clear enough. There was over 35% of lineups dead on day 1 last year because people just didn't know how match play worked. I'm sure they're a lot smarter this year. I'd say maybe 10 to 15% will be dead after round 1. But don't be that person that does that to yourself.
Yeah, don't take DJ and Sergio. Because they're, if they both win their bracket, they're meeting in around the 16, and one of them's gone after that. So,
that's a high-priced golfer that you're spending some serious capital on. So good point there, Mark.
Right.
All right. We have Rahm, Kuchar, JB Holmes, and Siwoo Kim in that bracket right underneath. I actually moved on RCB to that next round for me. Did you move on RCB, Westwood, or Schauffele?
You mean as far as making it to? I have Schauffele on the one that I did this morning, but I would, like I said, when you get into the pricing, because I'm doing this isn't relative to pricing on this.
Sure.
This is all just who you think is going to win. But when you get into the pricing, I think you're going to have to go RCB.
Okay.
Given the choice, you just save so much money on RCB or on Westwood that Schauffele I don't think is going to win the whole thing. So why not pick a guy that is going to get as far as potentially Schauffele is going to get for a cheaper price?
Okay. All right. So we have Rahm, Kuchar, Holmes, and Siwoo. I just think Rahm is playing phenomenal right now, and I'd love to see 2 Spaniards, RCB and Rahm, meet up in that round. And Kuchar's great. It's a Pete Dye course, guys. That's something I wanted to note. It's the Austin Country Club. It is a Pete Dye design, and Kuchar is a specialist on Pete Dye designs. I think Kuchar might be a little bit higher owned than he should be. But I mean, he's having a great season, and he's hard to beat. You're kind of going to have to beat him. He's not going to beat himself. So I think Rahm has the ability to beat him, and I also think Holmes has the ability to beat him. But I just, if you're looking for salary relief, I would go Kuchar. But I think Rahm actually pulls that one out.
Yeah, I actually like Kuchar better there. But again, you're in the same boat there that we are on some of the other ones. Do you want Rahm at the higher price, or do you want Kuchar at a more reasonable price and save some money? And both of them, again, both of them have the potential to advance. So it's a crapshoot, but you got to figure out you want the favorite or you want salary relief, and right there, the two of them, I don't think there's a clear favorite between the two of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just there's such a small sample size with match play with Rahm. Kuchar obviously has a bigger sample size. Who's played great, throughout his career in match play and on P-Dye courses. I hear a lot of talk about Si Woo just because he's good on P-Dye, but I don't know. I just that's a really tough bracket to be in. I mean, even Holmes has a chance to pull that out. So let's move on. I'm choosing Rahm. You're choosing Kuchar, just so everybody knows. So I'm going to keep going down that side. We have Justin Thomas, Keegan Bradley, Matt Wallace, and Lucas Beauregard on the same brackets. Obviously, Thomas is the clear favorite, but I actually like Wallace and Beauregard over Bradley, I would say. In that, I would choose both of them over Bradley. And, I mean, if you're looking for salary relief, I'd probably choose Wallace over anybody. If you need salary relief, but Thomas is the clear favorite. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, Beauregard is very low price. So if you're looking for salary relief there too, and he's been playing well, we just don't know a whole lot about him. He's a European guy that doesn't play much on the American tour, so we're not that familiar with him, and people in general aren't familiar with him. You watch him on TV, so again, I think like you said, Thomas is a clear favorite, but again, we can't take all the favorites. So if you think DJ or Justin Rose or somebody else is going to pull it out over JT, then maybe pick one of the other guys and get some salary relief. And even if JT advances, you just hope that in the next bracket, Jason Day or Mickelson knocks him off.
Yeah. So would you go Wallace or Beauregard, do you think? Or who did you move on? I know you said in your bracket it doesn't matter. Did you just pick JT and move on from there?
Yeah, I just moved JT on in the bracket for the PGA Tour.com. But again, that doesn't take into consideration pricing. So, I think when you get into some of the other ones, I've actually used if I didn't use JT as one of my higher price guys, I've used Wallace or Beauregard. I think I've used Beauregard maybe one time more than Wallace.
Okay. All right. Me personally, I'm gonna take Matt Wallace and get him to move on. I just think he's in a good spot as far as who he's matched up against. I think it's a pretty good matchup. I mean, JT, if he gets hot, nobody's gonna stop him in a match play. He can birdie every hole out there. So that's just a chance you got to be willing to take, guys. So I'm gonna move on Wallace, and then we have Day, Mickelson, Stenson, and Jim Furyk. That's a very star-studded cast right there, especially the way that Furyk's playing. That's a hard one to choose from. I mean, I'm gonna choose Phil. I think Phil kind of might sneak through and be a solid match play candidate. I mean, he's just so good at birdies and around the green, and I think this is a good around the green game. I think Day might be one of the lower owned, high price golfers though on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. So as the week progresses, if his ownership's really low. Since it is such a tough bracket, I think people will be afraid to pick Day because Stenson can beat him, Furyk can beat him, and Mickelson can beat him. It's not as clear cut as other brackets, so that might lower his ownership. I will end up choosing Day by weekend if he's one of the lower owned, high price golfers.
Yeah, and Phil's streaky too, so that's the other thing. You're talking about winning 3 holes in a row. Mickelson's very capable of doing that. Quickly. He can get hot. He can lose 3 holes in a row too, but. He's one of those guys that probably has a better probability of winning or losing 3 or 4 holes in a row just because of the way he plays.
Yeah, which is fine, though. I mean, they don't – like even Keegan Bradley, for example, right above him, he could bogey 4 or 5 holes in a row, but then, he's such a hot golfer from round to round. I mean, he could end up making it out of that first match play, his first couple of days and then completely just get destroyed in the round of 16. It's hard to predict. Match play is not easy, guys. That's why I'm saying don't play all your bankroll. Don't do that to yourself. You'll be beating your head against the wall like, why did I do this? Even last year, like Kirita Appy Barnrat beat some really, really high-end golfers, and he was like 6,100. One of the cheapest golfers out there, and made it to like the Elite Eight. Kisner made it to the Elite Eight, was like 6,500. There's a lot of really low-end golfers that make it, so don't put all your money into this, guys. Underneath that, we have Woods, Cantlay, Snedeker, and Wise. So that's a tough one. I think Woods got a pretty tough draw with Sneds and Cantlay there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, Cantlay really burned me last time he was out, but I think it's a good matchup for him as far as Snedeker and Woods. So Cantlay's my favorite in that group. What about you?
Yeah, I actually picked Cantlay too, and this may be a good one for everybody to differentiate on, because people are going to flock to Woods just simply because they like rooting for Tiger Woods. So this may be a good point where you pick Cantlay or Snedeker and get some differentiation, because I think most of the pack's going to be on Woods.
Yeah, I agree. I think Woods is he gets better as the week goes on. He's always normally a Saturday and Sunday golfer, but you don't get that chance in match play. If you're not very good round 1 and 2, you can go 0-2 your first couple matches and you're just out. So I kind of picture that happening to Woods this week. So I'm gonna roll with Cantlay. And then underneath that, we have Rory McIlroy, Matthew Fitzpatrick, I think it's Justin Harding, and Luke List. Harding is worth noting. He's first and second in his last 2 events. He's 6,200. Luke List is 6,800, just a birdie machine. Fitzpatrick is honestly a solid option. That's a tough bracket as well. It's hard to bet against Rory at this point. He's just rattling off top 5 after top 5 and shooting, 5 to 7 under every round, it seems like. What do you think there? It's really hard to differentiate, but I think Rory just should be the highest owned of the whole tournament.
Oh, God, yeah, Rory's going to be hugely owned. Again, on this just bracket challenge, I would pick McIlroy all day long, but when you start talking pricing, I'm glad you brought up Harding, because I looked at the same thing. I didn't even know who the guy was, but he's one of the top 64, 66 ranked players in the world, to be in here, because 2 of the guys aren't here. But Harding's the way he's playing, he could knock one of these guys off easily. I think the same thing's true about Matthew Fitzpatrick. The issue is going to be which one of the 2 or any of them can knock off McIlroy, because if McIlroy doesn't lose a match, he's going to advance. So somebody's got to knock him off. Yeah,
and Luke List got in because Fowler and Adam Scott, because I think he's the last person. I think he's 64th ranked.
Yeah.
Adam Scott and Ricky Fowler are not in this. I just don't think he has a chance, really. He's such a good birdie golfer, but I don't know. He could win 5 holes, but lose. He could win 5 in a row and then lose the next 13 because he's just so erratic. So I'm going to choose Fitzpatrick just for a little bit of salary relief. But don't forget that Harding guy at 6,200. Don't just glance over him. First and second in his last 2 tournaments, so he's coming in with super hot current form. Even if he's on like the Sunshine Tour or something, it's not like a very well known tour. It doesn't matter if you're that good and you're playing that well. All it takes is a couple good days to get out of your rounds or your first quadrant.
Yep.
So I'm going to plug in Fitzpatrick. All right, so let's move on to the other side of the bracket. I'm going to go all the way back up top, Mark, just so you know. So we have Rose, Woodland, Pepperell, and Emiliano Grillo. Clear-cut favorite, obviously, is Rose. Pepperell played really good a couple weeks ago. I believe he had a top 5 with a really good Saturday and Sunday showing. Woodland is solid. He missed his first cut of the week last week. Of the year. He was like, I think 23 in a row cuts made and finally missed one. I don't know. What do you think there? I don't have a clear cut in that quadrant.
There's some good matchups in a lot of these quadrants. Woodland's got to be considered, because most Pete Dye courses in this course, I think, because of the par 5s, is going to be a good course for a bomber. And Woodland is one of those, what we refer to as an accurate bomber, because he doesn't stray too much. So you've got to consider Woodland. Again, I think you're right. Rose is going to be the clear favorite here. And if you're playing the bracket, pick Rose maybe. But when you're playing DFS, there's to me at least 2 options there. Would look more at Woodland and Pepperell than I would Grillo, simply because I think they're playing better than Grillo is right now. But those 2 can save you some money. Pepperell could probably give you some really good salary relief. I'm not sure exactly where he is, but I know he's down on the list.
Yeah, I think I'm going to cut Grillo out of my player pool, honestly. There's got to be some players you just don't really consider. Honestly, whoever makes it out of that round, I don't think moves on. So I think whoever wins out of the Bubba, Speed, Horschel, and Na group right underneath them, I think they end up moving on to the round of the quarterfinals. So whoever you choose, it is between Woodland and Rose and Pepperell. I'm gonna plug in. Pepperell. Honestly, he might be that sneaky guy that kind of just creeps in. Even though Woodland and Rose are better golfers, clearly, I think there's going to be a non-favorite in one of these top brackets that just surprises everybody. So I'm going to choose Pepperell.
Yeah, and like I said, I would pick Rose in just the bracket challenge, but and I agree with you too. If Pepperell is the one that moves on, I think the winner of the other bracket, the Watson Spieth bracket, beats whoever beats Pepperell.
Yep. And so move on. We have Bubba, we have Spieth, Horschel, and Na. Na, did you see that withdrawal, honestly, like before the tournament even started? Because I missed it, and I had him in like probably 8 lineups, and I was really frustrated.
Yeah, I did not. I don't think I had him anywhere. But it was frustrating when that happens because sometimes you just don't have the opportunity. Once the lineup locks, even if the guy hasn't teed off, you can't change him. So that's just the difference between this and the late swap on basketball or hockey or something like that. So
I had a couple 5 or 6 lineups with Louis in them, and then Na was the one that didn't make it. And I'm like, gosh, what in the world? Mm-hmm. I didn't see it until like the lineup lock. I'm like, okay, well that's cool. So I mean, I'm assuming since he's playing in this, he's gonna play. I'm gonna knock him out of my player pool because I really like Horschel and Spieth. And I think people are going to go towards Bubba, but I think Bubba might be like 20 to 25% owned. I just think that Spieth kind of lines up well because what he's been doing to himself is he's been, quadrupling and tripling holes, but that's fine. That's only 1 hole lost. It's not like your score doesn't matter. So, in these tournaments where he's putting together a bunch of birdies, he might be winning these holes in match play. And same thing with Horschel. Horschel is just a ton of birdies and kind of evens himself out with too many bogeys. So it's Spieth for me, Horschel, and then Bubba, and then Na as far as my rankings. So I'm going to plug in Spieth, and I haven't recommended him very often this year.
Yeah, I like I said in the bracket challenge, I would go with Watson or Spieth. But yeah, for some differentiation, and I'm telling you, Spieth is probably not going to be highly owned because people are just thinking. Well, we've talked about the last couple live streams. Spieth is just not Spieth, so people are just going to ignore him. So he may be a good option to slide in there for you.
Yep. And then if you just don't like Spieth, like you simply don't like the way his game is at all, I would pivot to Horschel over Watson. I'm going to play Watson, don't get me wrong, but I think his ownership might just be a little bit too high. He's having a really low key, awesome season. He hasn't had a round like over par in like his last 12 rounds. So he's not even like bogeying holes. He's just playing. It's almost unlike Bubba. He's birdieing very minimal holes, but he's bogeying very minimal holes. It used to be birdie 8 and then bogey 6, and he ended up 2 under. Now it's like birdie 4 and maybe bogey 2. So it's just a different type of golfer this year, and I mean his results are showing it. Bubba's playing really well. So I think Spieth is a good pivot. Moving on, we have Casey. Good job, Casey, with your back-to-back wins and you defending your title after going 12 over the week prior. So we have Casey, Cam Smith, Charles Howell, and Abraham Answer. Another cool little bracket there. My favorite's Charles Howell. And it's really not even that close to me. 7,400 gives me good salary relief. He's kind of like the Kuchar in the way you have to beat him. He's not going to beat himself. Yeah. And at that price, I mean, I love a golfer like that. But as a dark horse in that, I would choose Abraham, honestly, over Cam Smith and Paul Casey. So I would choose the bottom two, and that's a great way to differentiate yourself right there, Howell and Answer.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that one because I think the things that I've read Answers even the local boy, even though he's from Mexico, but I think he's played a lot of golf in the Texas area, and like you said, those two aren't going to beat themselves. Now Cameron Smith, I think, will be the favorite of some touts. You may see that in some places because he's been playing well and he's one of the up and coming new breed of stars. But again, I'm with you with Howe and Kuchar. I mean, I wouldn't even mind having both of them in the same lineup because, like you said, they're not going to beat themselves.
Yeah, and I like Cam Smith more if the wind picks up more. He's Australian, is a very solid wind golfer. So if the wind gets a little bit out of control, well, I guess lock us tomorrow morning, so we need to know by tonight. So Slack chat, I'll be on there tonight, guys. If you have questions, reach out to me and Mark. Very short.
We're under the crunch this week, so we're not going to be able to give you all the detailed information. You're not going to see articles from either one of us because we can't do it that quickly. So rely on this and rely on Slack chat and Twitter because you're going to need to ask some questions.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to move Charles Howell on, and then underneath that we have Molinari, Webb Simpson, Thunder Bear, Torbjorn Olesen, and Satoshi Kodaira. So
Thunder Bear?
Yeah, that's his nickname.
Really?
Thunder Bear. Yeah,
Thunder
Bear.
Me pick him. I like that.
It's awesome, isn't it? Yeah. So Thunder Bear. Honestly, I like him in that range. It's Olesen and Molinari for me. That's kind of who I'm narrowing in on. I like Molinari in match play. I think he's kind of like just this cold-blooded killer, but he's so quiet about it. I think he's a very competitive person, and I think especially because he grew up with his brother. I know having a brother that was a couple years apart from me, just that constant competitive edge.
Yep.
And his brother's a professional golfer as well, so I know Molinari is a competitor just based on that. But I like Torbjorn Olesen, especially if the wind picks up. He's a really good wind player, a very low iron shooter, so he just kind of cuts through it, and it's a shorter course, par 71, 7,100 yards. So I like Olesen or Molinari.
I think Molinari and Poulter are sort of like the 180 of each other as far as personality goes in match play. They're both assassins, but Poulter is more in your face, and I'm going to get you, and Molinari just goes about his business and just beats the crap out of you.
Yes, he does. And there's nothing wrong with that, man. It won him a major last year, right?
That's right.
All right, let's move on down. Anybody? I really don't really want to talk about Kodaira. I just don't think he has a chance. Cut him out of your player pool.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So Olesen, I'm sure people will be on Simpson after burning some people last week. You don't have to cut him out of your player pool, but I like Molinari and Olesen. Right underneath that, we have DeChambeau, Mark Leishman, Kierdet, Effie Barnrat, and Russell Knox. It's Russell Knox and DeChambeau for me. What do you think in that range?
Agreed. 100% agree. I think DeChambeau may, because he's not playing so well, and this is one of his, I think this may be his first time in match play, or maybe second in this. I don't think he played in it last year. I'm not sure. But I think he's going to go under-owned maybe a little more than a lot of these big-name guys because he's not been playing very well. But he's also one of those guys because match play is methodical. Match play is outthinking your opponent. And what's his nickname? He's the professor. I wouldn't be shocked if DeChambeau doesn't make it to the final 8.
It's a great call. Actually, my first bracket I filled out, I had DeChambeau winning it. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's just kind of how it panned out. And he kind of seems like he has the easiest bracket if he can get through the two people underneath that I'm really high on as well. I do like Russell Knox, though. He's like number one in opportunities gained out of this entire field in his last 12 rounds. And that means he's putting shots, whether it's on the green or on the fringe, within 15 feet of the hole. He's just not putting great, but his irons are absolutely on point. And Mark, I'm sure you saw the Albatross last week.
Yep.
175-yard 3-wood, just nutted it, and rolled out perfect. That doesn't really matter for match play. That's just one hole. But, that just kind of tells you that he can even take advantage of par 5s, and he's not a huge long hitter as well. But it's not a long course, so I like Russell Knox. Kierdet Effie Barnrat has kind of been a match play, low-key, really, really good player. But I don't know. That's a tough draw with Leishman, DeChambeau, and Knox. So I'm going to go Knox and DeChambeau and move on.
Yeah, I think Knox is a good choice because, he's the 59th ranked golfer in this whole thing, and he's also made a lot of cuts this year. Now, I agree this isn't, the 2 days make the cut type thing, but Russell Knox isn't beating himself this year either. So, he's another one that if you want a lower-priced guy, I put him in the same category as Charles Howell Kuchar.
All right. Fleetwood, Louis Oosthuizen, Kyle Stanley, Young Hun An. I think it's Usti for me. What he showed around the greens last week was phenomenal in his final round. He hit 6 greens out of 18, still shot 2 under on a really tough course. Shot 2 under. Yeah, hit 6 greens out of 18 last week and still ended up, I think, third. He ended up coming in third. I like Usti a lot. I think people are going to go towards Fleetwood and on. I think Stanley's completely going to be overlooked, but I don't really like Stanley. His game is not where it used to be. He's just not striking it as well. His approaches aren't as good as they used to be in previous seasons. So it's between on, Usti, and Fleetwood, and I'm going Usti for a little bit of salary relief.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fleetwood's going to be popular. I like Fleetwood. I think Fleetwood could win the thing. But again, you're playing a game where you can't pick all the high-priced guys. You got to have some salary relief somewhere. And I think out of these four guys, Oosthuizen is probably your most viable option.
I mean, that's a good narrative, though. Fleetwood hasn't won on the PGA Tour yet. He's been so close. And this would be, of course, he'd probably win like a match play event when most people aren't on him. He's 30% owned in most like regular tournaments, and he's going to be higher owned, but he's 96. So, I mean, that's a pretty high price for who he's going to have faced up against. So then we have DeChambeau and Usti going against each other. All right, so right underneath we have Finau, Poulter, Kevin Kisner, and Keith Mitchell. That's a really good bracket. Poulter and Kisner are awesome at match play. I'm a little bit frustrated that they're paired up against each other because they're both good salary relief, but they're in the same bracket, so you can't choose them both. Finau is solid. Keith Mitchell is just the king on Bermuda greens, it seems like, and this is Bermuda greens. He's just been lighting it up on Bermuda. That's a really hard bracket. I'm going to choose it's got to be Poulter for me. He's just a killer when it comes to match play, but I can see him disappointing a lot of people. My dark horse in that would be Finau. I actually think he comes in very low owned for what his price will be.
Yeah, I agree. Finau is going to be lower owned there. I think people are going to flock to Poulter for the same reason that I like him, is his killer instinct when he's playing you head to head. He's the same way when he's playing in a regular tour event, but it's more himself against the course type killer instinct. But if he's matched up with you, Poulter just wants to take you down. He doesn't care who you are, how tall you are, how far you hit it. He just wants to take you down. So, he's got to be a favorite anytime you got match play. But Tony Finau is going to be, I think, the dark horse here. And like you said, Kisner is also a good player. I also, when I did one of my lineups until the brackets came out, I did the lineup before that, and I had Poulter and Kisner in the same lineup. And I'm thinking, man, this is great. So I saw they were in the same pod, and then I'm like, well, you can't do that because you're basically kissing your sister there, buddy.
Yeah, that's tough. So make sure if you've already set like early lineups, I'd recommend going back and deleting them all because they might be wrong, and you don't really know, and it'll take a really long time for you to figure it out with the new bracket. So if you're a person that puts in a bunch of early lineups, I highly recommend checking them again. So I'm going to move on Finau because I really do think he'll be a lower owned high price golfer, and that's going to be hard to find this week. So I'm gonna move on Finau, but that's a really, really, really tough bracket to choose from.
Yeah, there's not a clear cut winner in that one for sure.
Nope, not at all. And then underneath that, I think it's the clearest bracket of them all. I think Koepka moves on. I really do. And I don't even think. I mean, Hautong would be my second pick, but I don't think Noren and Tom Lewis really stand a chance.
Yeah, Noren played well here last year or the year before.
Yeah, he played last year, I believe.
Yeah, but again, Noren has disappointed the last couple of weeks, which, again, I know there's a difference between stroke play and match play, but your game is your game. And if you're not striking it well, you're not striking it well in match play, and you're not striking it well in stroke play. And Noren struggled the last couple of weeks. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. Koepka, especially with the advantage on the par fives, is a clear winner in that group.
All right. Well, then do you want to kind of break it down from there? Because I know we have a little bit different as far as our round of 16, so it's going to be tough to kind of.
Yeah, let's just go with yours and go from there. I can comment on either one of them.
Okay. All right.
If I have something completely different, I'll just point it out.
Sure. All right. So I have Dustin Johnson and Patrick Reed then meeting in the round of 16. Out of those two, like I said, if Reed makes it there, I think he disappoints Johnson. I don't think he disappoints us. I think if he starts playing hot, I think Reed's going to keep hot. I would have Reed moving on there.
I actually had Garcia moving on over Reed, but like you said, if Reed wins, I think Reed beats Johnson. If Garcia wins, I think Johnson beats Garcia.
There we go. Exactly. I would actually agree with that 100%. I just like Reed once he gets hot. DJ's coming off a pretty poor Sunday. Obviously, he was a clear favorite after being a stroke down on Sunday, so I don't know if that mentally plays with him, but he's kind of a nonchalant guy. He expects to be in the top 10 every week he's out there. And he's had good performances at this course. So I'm going to move on Reed. Mark says he moves on Sergio, but if they end up meeting up, then he says Sergio loses and DJ wins. So Reed makes it to the quarterfinals for me. Right underneath that, we have RCB, so Rafa Cabrera-Bello, and John Rahm, 2 Spaniards facing off, is what I have. What do you have there, Mark?
I have, in my bracket thing, I have Schauffele and Kuchar.
Okay.
I moved Kuchar on. And
okay.
Probably I'm moving Kuchar on probably for the same reason you're going to move on whoever you move on. But, you know, I'm picking Kuchar over Rahm just because I think Kuchar's more consistent. But, again, Rahm's one of those guys. He gets hot, he wins. And I think if Rahm wins that bracket, Rahm moves on.
Okay. I think that I want to choose RCB to move on. I like having I need to have a lower price golfer move on. If I don't, then I'm pinching the hole in myself into something where I have $6,000-9,000 golfers, and I have to choose some very, very low owned scrubs. I like a more balanced approach this week. So Reed and RCB kind of move on for me into that round quarterfinal. But
I moved Kuchar, so I mean, mine over Schauffele, who I had. So I mean, Kuchar and RCB, I don't think or I don't remember what the pricing is on it, but I don't think there's too much difference in their price.
Not too much. I believe Kuchar's like 8,100 or 8,000. So yeah, so we get some salary relief right there, and it takes some big guns away. I mean, we have DJ and Rahm not making it, so that would be pretty big. So Reed and RCB is where I go, and then he's got Kuchar in there. And Sergio, or in DJ. All right. So underneath that, I have Matt Wallace and Phil Mickelson. Matt Wallace is a huge dark horse. I'm sure you have Thomas there instead of Matt Wallace.
Yeah, I went Thomas and then this again, folks. This is just purely on the bracket with no salary in place. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think if I picked anybody from this bracket on a DFS lineup so far, I think I've gone with Wallace and Beauregard. I don't think I've played Thomas. Maybe once, but if I played Thomas, then I didn't play DJ, or if I played Thomas, I didn't play Rose. It's one of those things you can't. It's just like every other week with these guys at the top. You got to make a stand and pick one or the other.
Yep. So again, guys, PGAtour.com. Go to the bracket so you can visualize it and see how it moves on. If you don't have any way to visualize it and you're just setting lineups on DraftKings, you're bound to tie yourself up somewhere. Well, I'm going to have Phil move on. If he's playing against Matt Wallace, I think Phil takes him down. That's just where I'm going. I'm not really need to explain that. I just think Phil, if he gets hot, he's going to play like Phil and stay hot. Yeah, it's what's going to happen. And then underneath that, I have Patrick Cantlay and then Matthew Fitzpatrick. So I had Cantlay move on, beating Woods and Snedeker, my other 3 favorites. And then I had Fitzpatrick over Rory McIlroy based just on ownership. If Rory makes it out, I think he's the one that moves on. But if it's Cantlay against Fitzpatrick, I'm going to move on Cantlay. So it's going to be Cantlay and Phil Mickelson making it to the quarterfinals for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I have McIlroy on the bracket moving forward, but that's, again, from a DFS standpoint, you got to look at ownership. And again, I think I want to emphasize this again. When you look at the brackets, look at the bracket, because if you fill out a lineup, you need to have at least one person in your lineup from each of the 4 regions. If you don't, you're giving up a spot. You're going to automatically be down one come Saturday or Sunday, because if you don't pick anybody from the bracket that Rose is in, somebody's got to advance there. So you're basically hurting yourself. So look at the brackets and make sure you have at least one golfer from each of the 4 regions on your team.
Okay. So I moved back up to the top right side of the bracket. So I have Eddie Pepperell moving on from the Rose bracket, and then Jordan Spieth moving on from the Bubba Watson bracket. I'm going to have Spieth. If he's playing like Spieth, he's going to keep hot. And then he's going to end up getting disappointed in the next round. But I will have him move on to the quarterfinals. And then I have Francisco Molinari against Charles Howell. And I think that Charles Howell actually pulls it out. I'm going to keep the salary relief going there. And I think he's just the dark horse to have a really, really good tournament.
No, I agree with you on that one. I think Bubba could do something, but just because of the salary, I'm probably going to stay away.
Okay. Salary and ownership, not only just
ownership as well. That's correct.
Ownership's big. So if Charles Howell ends up being too high owned too, I would end up going like Moley over him, but I think they'll be similar in ownership. So Spieth and Howe move on to the quarterfinals in that top bracket. And then we have DeChambeau against Louis Oosthuizen, Tony Finau against Brooks Koepka. I'm going to keep the DeChambeau going. If he makes it out of that first round, he's going to be out for blood. He hasn't really been super, super hot and finished really high this season yet. But I think he gets it going when he gets it going. So I'm choosing DeChambeau. Any discrepancies there?
Yeah, I might pick Fleetwood over DeChambeau if I'm actually just doing the bracket. But again, like we discussed before, with DeChambeau being the way he is and being a thinking golfer, again, match play is head to head. You outthink your opponent, you outplay your opponent. So he's got an advantage there, I think, a little bit with the outthinking part sometimes.
Okay, and then we have Finau against Koepka. I'm actually going to choose Finau. Brooks and DeChambeau are kind of butting heads because what Brooks been saying about like the really slow play and stuff.
Yeah.
He's really, talking about just get up there and hit the freaking ball. He's pretty much talking about DeChambeau taking 3 minutes to figure out and analyze every single golf shot. So if they end up playing against each other, I think DeChambeau crumbles if Koepka does move on. But I'm actually going to choose Finau. Koepka, he just hasn't been playing as well. He's a big game hunter, and he plays well against the best people in the world. I just don't think his game's there right now. And I read an article recently that he lost about 25 pounds for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit model or whatever it is that they do every year. And I seriously think that's messing with his golf game because he hasn't gained it all back. He's only gained like 10 pounds of it back. So he said he lost about 10 to 12 yards off his drives. And that, you have to play. It just changes your game. It changes your second shots. And little things like that I didn't know at the beginning of the year, but I read an article recently saying that. So that's just something worth noting.
Well, look at the same thing happened to Bubba years ago when Bubba lost all that weight. Bubba didn't play well for a while either because, again, it changes the mechanics a little bit.
Absolutely. Sugar-free Bubba is what we used to call him.
That's right.
He lost a bunch of weight. Aaron Wise put on like 15 to 20 pounds of muscle in the offseason, and he hasn't been playing good this season. Comparatively to others, he's kind of, trying to dial that down. Scott Stallings lost like 50 to 60 pounds, playing way better now in way better shape. There's golfers that go through these physical changes, and it's hard to get the mechanics down, as Mark said.
Yeah, the only difference I would have with you there, and I think at this point, once we get through this, we just stop because I think the more names we start throwing out, we're going to confuse people. But
yep.
I had Poulter moving on over Finau just simply because I'm a Poulter guy. But I also think if that happens, I think Poulter beats Koepka. So I think whoever comes out of that bracket beats Koepka.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Koepka moves on no matter what. I completely agree. Koepka's not going anywhere after he gets to that round. So then let's go all the way back into the top of this. Our last round. So we're going to just move you guys into the semifinals. And if you get all four of these guys in there, you got a really good chance to win some money. So we have Patrick Reed against RCB. I'm going to keep the RCB train alive. I'm going to go RCB to move on to the semifinals.
I agree.
All right. And then we have Mickelson against Cantlay. I'm going to choose Mickelson. Like I said, when he gets hot, he's going to stay hot. So we would have RCB against Mickelson in the semifinals. And then we have Spieth and Charles Howell. That is not where I expected that bracket to go, honestly. It's just, like I said, I need some ownership leverage in a tournament like this because there's going to be a lot of high-owned and duplicate lineups. So I'm going to choose Spieth because,
maybe this is the week Spieth turns it around.
I'm going to choose Spieth. I'm going with Spieth. And then, let's see, DeChambeau and Finau. I think everybody thinks DeChambeau moves on, but Finau disappoints. And I'm going to choose Finau to move on from there.
I think I'd take DeChambeau, but that's basically the only place that I would differ from you on that.
And then we have, and that can go multiple ways, guys. So if you get to that quarterfinal, that's a great way to just throw in. So make what you think is going to get to the quarterfinals and then make a bunch of lineups with other people moving on to that next round. Don't just put, 10 lineups into the same 4 people moving on to that next round because even if 2 of them miss out of the 4 you choose, you're screwed. So be smart, make choices, go with your gut. Like I said, I'm not really going off stats this week. It's just grit and form and who shows up on a certain day is what's going to matter this week.
Yep. And again, even if you want to start with who you think is going to make the Final Four and work your way backwards in the bracket, you can do that. That way you're guaranteeing yourself somebody in those Final Four spots. And again, like I said, make sure you pick somebody from each region. If you don't, you're basically giving your money away.
Absolutely. So if you have questions on what we mean by that, Slack chat's the best way to reach us. Also, guys, make sure that if you have questions on your lineups, like, okay, if I have this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, what are the chances of them moving on or meeting up and me screwing my lineups? Let us know, because we can kind of look at these brackets and help you out. But again, PGAtour.com is the best way to kind of look at it. Other than that, Mark, I don't really have much else to say. Good luck, guys. Don't play all your bankroll. Let's get after it.
Yep, have some fun with it. If you want to throw a lineup or two into the Punta Cana, you know some of those guys, but don't throw a whole lot of money into either one. This is a split field, and it just isn't going to be the same.
Yep. Dark horse for Punta Cana if you know low owned. I like Curtis Luck this week, guys, to pull out a W.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked that closely.
Yeah, and if you have questions on that, I've actually done research on that too, guys. So if you want to play a little bit more of that, there's some decent tournaments. You can win $25K on some $5 low GPPs. There's still a $1 winner take all if you want to throw in a couple $1. Let me know. I've done some research. I'll have a better idea on the Punta Cana for you. Okay, that's it. Mark, take it easy, my man. Have a good day at work. See you, Scouts, and take it easy, everybody.